Today I thought I would do a video on my small 3-point backhoe and also show how I hook it up to the tractor and some specifics about how to adjust it to hook to a tractor. It's a WoodMaxx is the brand. I think it's a China backhoe, I'm not sure. And that's a WM7600 is the model, and you can go to their website and look at it. I bought it new from them. Had good customer service, and I'll say overall this hoe is I think for the money an extremely good deal. It is a heavier hoe than most others I've seen as far as the steel. Just the general duty of it looks to me to be very heavy. It's for its size. I haven't bent it, and I've really put it through some paces, and I haven't bent anything on it. And you could, the hydraulics are strong enough that, you know, it was a concern, but there's no concern anymore because it's a very sturdy backhoe. It's a 3-point mount, which is, I want to talk about that some today too. Everybody, seems to be a lot of difference of opinion on whether or not that's a good idea or not, or a frame mount's better. I think probably a frame mount's better no matter what you say, but I don't have any issues with this one being a 3-point mount. Not anymore, and I'll explain why. It would be nice if my reach was a little bit further, but of course that's an issue with the weight and the size of the tractor. Controls are here, and they're very, very I don't know, ergonomically placed, I guess you'd say. They work very well. You can change here there's a lever on the side, and you can change which way the configuration of the valve that controls everything works. And I did have a different backhoe, a Ford and a New Holland, and it was a little different, and there's a couple things I've had to get used to. Actually, the hoe worked the same. It was the stabilizer controls here are opposite of what I'm used to. But this obviously not hard to get used to. But you can see it's a heavy hoe. It's got its own PTO pump, and this is the one that came with it. It seems to be adequate. This is there's a tank on the back. Everything's kind of dirty right now. I just got done using it, but there's a tank for the hydraulic fluid on the back. And it does leak a little bit at the top here. I'm not sure why that cap seems to be pretty tight. So yeah, it's a sturdy backhoe, and it works really well. One of the problems I had with it, and I'll just walk over here real quick and show you, when I first bought this hoe, I had it hooked to this tractor. This is a Kubota B7800, and I've talked about this a little bit in other videos. It's a 30 horse tractor. Without the bucket, I think it weighs about 1,700 pounds. And I always felt like, I've used this hoe a ton on this tractor, and I've always felt like the tractor was a little too small. And that really has to do with the weight more than anything. It's the weight of the tractor that to me is what's necessary for the hoe. The horsepower was fine to run the hoe, no problem at all running that hoe. And I could run it on there, and I might still run it on this tractor in the future. I don't see any issues with it other than it just seems a little oversized for this tractor. It makes it very back heavy, and so steering is not as nice because you're just barely tipping, you know, touching the tires on the front on the ground. So steering can be kind of a little sketchy, especially if you're doing loader work. If you're trying to do loader work and you're trying to grade it and things, you keep wanting to pop off the ground if I have the hoe mounted on the back. So that's an issue with weight, and so that's another reason why I just bought a new tractor, and that's what I have over here. This is a Kubota 3301. I bought it used, but it only has about 200 hours, a little less than 200 hours on it. So the difference is, the main difference is the weight. This tractor here, well, there's a lot of differences, but this tractor is a 33 horse, so I'm only getting 3 more horse, and I couldn't off the top tell you what the PTO horsepower difference is. I don't really have an issue with either one there. The difference is the weight and the size of the tractor. If you look at the back of this tractor and were to compare it to the B7800, This is much beefier, and as a result, weighs about 1,000 pounds more. I've had this hoe on this tractor once, and it just took it off a little while ago. I'm getting ready to put it back on, and I can tell you that it's just much better with this tractor. You can tell this is the right size tractor for this hoe. Well, another issue with this tractor that I've had and concerns with is it seems very front heavy to me. And one of the reasons why I bought this tractor was for this hoe. Well, when I put the hoe on it, it's all balanced out, and it works really well. Without the hoe, it's still a little front heavy, which makes a difference when you're doing loader work. Turning the wheels is not as easy as on the WM7800. There are some differences. But because it's heavier altogether and it's front heavy on top of that, in my opinion, it has more weight distributed to the front. It works excellent for this backhoe. So I'll show you next how I put the hoe on the tractor. And I was going to talk about when you first get it. If you buy one of these hoes and you're curious about it and you see them talk about it in their video a little bit, I don't think I ever saw anybody talk about how you put it on or initially set it up. And if you look on here, this is down here, right here is where the lift arms go, and there's 2 pins and you can pick which one works best. And there's also this piece right here, which is your top link. And you can see because there's 2 bolts here, it's rigid. When you put this on your tractor, everything is rigid. You can't raise and lower the lift arms and move this up and down. You can't, because this is all rigid. So and the geometry has to stay exactly as it is. So when you first get it, you need to adjust it so it will fit on your tractor, compared to other tractors will be set up a little differently. In fact, I had to change it when I went from the WM7800 to this tractor. I had to readjust everything to make it work. Now, one of the things I did was I took the pallet that was shipped on and I made a little dolly out of it. And I always plan on making a steel dolly, but I really never have had to. This is all worked really well. If you look at it from the side, you'll see I have casters underneath it, and those casters are like 1,000-pound casters, I think. And I've never really had any issue with this. Once I got it all set up and had it on there, it works really well. And the height of it is such that it's almost the right height to put it on the tractor, and it's certainly close enough that I can almost slide the tractor into it with it being that height. And that's probably one of the key points to this. Without this dolly, this would be a much more difficult process. But I can move this around by myself. I can shove it around my shed by myself, and I move it and store it and pull it out when I need it, and line it up with the tractor. And you can see that's kind of what I've done here. I've just kind of pushed it out and pushed it up next to the tractor and to get it ready to put on. So that's key to the whole, one of the keys to the whole thing. So now talk a little bit about putting on the tractor, and I'm going to talk a lot about it before I actually do it, because I'll have to turn the tractor on and show you how I do it with the tractor running, so that I can put the PTO pump on before I actually mount it to the tractor, and that gives me the ability to move the hydraulics on the hoe, which gives me the ability to adjust and move it around so that I can more easily hook it up to the tractor. So that's kind of a brief explanation of it. But there's where the pins go in the lift arms, and this is the part that has to be adjusted. So the idea is you want to have the lift arms just about level, the whole thing coming out from the tractor, so that the lift arms are just about level coming out from the tractor, and then you'll have to put them and pin them into these one of these holes. I use the holes that are the ones I'm pointing at there, which is closest to the back, and then when you get it moved closer to the tractor, you can get the whole unit level. I think the instructions actually call for you to put a level on here so you can figure it out. I don't do that anymore. I just eyeball it, and I think it's pretty close. But then I go ahead and hook the bottom up, and then what you have to do is use all these different adjustment holes that you see here, and you have to find the right ones that where once you, what I do is I take these bolts out, I loosen these bolts so that this can move a little bit. This brace right here can move a little bit. And then what I do is I back it up, hook this into where I want it in the back of the top link, and then with all these bolts out, and then I line it all up and see if there's a hole in here that matches. You have to have one bolt go through both of these supports and through this bar, and this bar slides in and out till you get these holes lined up. And then once you do, you put that bolt through there and you find the other bolt that runs the other hole that matches up and put this bolt in so it becomes rigid. And you have to have both these bolts in, and you have to have them through this. Now that's why all these holes are here, though, that you can get different geometry. This can go backwards. If you move this back, it raises this up and changes the geometry. If you move it forward to a hole up here, it puts it down. And here, I used to have it in this one, in this hole here, and then when I moved it, I had to move it to that hole to get everything to line up. So you have to really play with it to get it so that it lines up. It's helpful to have two people for this process because you need more than one hand to hold everything while you get at least one bolt in it somewhere so that it'll hold by itself. After I get that done, it's on the tractor and it's level, and I tighten these bolts down. That's it. As far as, I'm never going to do that again. As long as I hook this to this tractor, this same tractor, I won't have to change that ever again. That part stays and you're done. And now all I got to do is back it up to the tractor, hook the lift arms into this pin, and then jimmy this into the top link, which is why I need the hydraulics. Because now that this is all rigid, I've got to line this up perfectly with that hole in the back of the tractor that you see right here. And to do that, I'm going to use the hydraulics to push and pull and move it around a little bit until I can get it lined up to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and start the process of doing this. The first thing I do, and I have it already set up about as close as I want, is I'm going to actually take this pump and take it off here. It's just hanging on here right now, and I'm going to hook it up to the PTO on the tractor before I do anything else, because it's hard to get in there to do it. So with the hoe moved out a little bit, I can push that on there and get it hooked up. There's enough play in these hoses. I can get it hooked up and then back the tractor in and hook the rest of the actual hoe to the tractor. So I'm going to set the camera down and turn the tractor on and show you how I do this. So first thing I'm going to do is, I got this chain to the up here to the seat bracket. I'm going to take the chain off from around that. One of the funny things about this PTO pump is that this collar on the top that is used to put it on, latch it on, is a little bit counterintuitive. It doesn't really want to quite close enough. So I'm not close enough. So this is where the dolly helps, because I can just push the dolly closer . And I can even kind of push the whole hoe to the side a little bit while I'm in here doing this, and I'll be able to just push it back. So give me a little bit more room to work. So it's on there, and I have to push that forward instead of pull this back to get it on. Now it's locked on, and the only other thing I have to do to get this, it's going to turn, it's going to go this way. And so I'm gonna put a chain around it so that, and I'm gonna chain it to this lift arm so that it just doesn't start spinning. And eventually I'll put that other chain on it. Right now I only need room. I'm just looking for my other connector for the chain, and it dropped and I don't see it. No, it's on there still. All right. Yeah. So now I can start the tractor and back it up and line it up into those, line those lift arms up into the bottom. Connect those pins. Here I am going to use the tractor to back up rather than trying to move the dolly. It'll be easier. I'm just trying to get it lined up a little more straight. Before I go any further, I have these currently set to a height that I have predetermined the last time I hooked it up to be the correct height. And that's an issue because you don't want to, eventually it's going to be set rock solid, you're not going to be able to move them, but I made a mark up there on my lever so I can tell about where these need to be when I back up. I can fine tune that. But the idea is, once I get it on the tractor, I'm not going to be able to lift it up and down once I get this connected. The other side's the same, so I'm going to try and show this side first. This is probably the most tedious part of doing this, getting those lift arms in there, both of them at the same time. I'm pretty close. Let the lift arms down just a hair. Sorry I had to step in front of the camera, but it helps to have that on the dolly because I can kind of wiggle it around. I'm just going to put a pin in it, keep it there. I'm going to go around the other side and do that now. I've got the two bottom ones in. I still haven't turned the PTO pump on yet. I've got the two pins in. So the next thing I'm going to do is hook up the top link. If I get a better angle here. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to put those stabilizer arms down once I turn the PTO pump on. That's going to give me more adjustability. And the PTO pump is running now. I'm going to take this keeper, I keep this on these, they do lose, the valve does leak a little, I think. I'm going to put the stabilizers down. I've got the tractor running super low so you can hear me better. I don't have a lot of speed on my hydraulics right now, but they will work. So you can see I just raised it up a little bit. So I know that my top link is going to connect to the middle hole. I have 3 holes in mine down here. I know it connects to the middle one. That's important because you want to be in the same one you were last time when you got it all set up. So I got to get close to that. So I'm going to go get the pin that goes in there. It seems like it's pretty close the way it is, but it's not quite there. It's hard to see from this position, but I think you'll get the idea of what I'm trying to do. So it seems like it needs to go back. So it needs to go this way. I'm going to use the boom on this to push it back a little bit. I'm going to extend the boom. I'm going to push it down and then let it up. See? really close. I let the stabilizers down just a hair, and it seems to be, it went in halfway. Now I'm going to see if I can get it in all the way. I'm going to go ahead and tap it with a hammer because I think it's really close. This is the most tedious step of the whole process right here. How long it takes you to get this hooked up is basically how long it takes you to hook it to the tractor. And everything else is pretty simple. So now I've got it in there, it's on the tractor. I'm going to lift it a little bit to get my dolly out. Let me zoom out. So I'm going to go around the other side and lift it by pushing up on those stabilizer arms, let them lift it, because it's still kind of sitting on the dolly a little bit. I'm also going to lift the boom. Dolly is free. I'm just going to roll it out. And it's on the tractor. I'll go ahead and let this back down. The one thing I have to do still to get it adjusted right is I have to adjust and tighten up the sway links. If you look down here, if you're familiar with tractor implements, that turnbuckle right there is loose right now, and if I don't tighten it, it's going to create all kinds of problems because it's going to tip. This whole thing is tippy right now. If I tighten up those two arms a little bit, it'll be very, very rigid. So I'm going to do that next. I don't think you'll be able to get a good shot of me doing this. I'm going to be in the way of the camera, but that's the link I'm tightening right there. One other thing that I do after that's tight I'll put those lock nuts on there and tighten those too. But the hoses are a little long, so what I do is I usually take a rubber stretch tie, and I wrap it around those hoses down there on the ground. You see, they're almost touching the ground. And I just lift them up, tie them up, so that when I'm running around with the tractor, they don't hook on something and get yanked off. But I'll work the hole a little bit and show you a little bit, just me working the controls. I'm going to turn the throttle up a little on the tractor so I can get a little more speed on that pump. Too. Like it always seems like I'm going to hit my head on the rollover protection. But even on this tractor, even though that seat looks like it's behind the ROPS. If you look at it right there, it is. I don't hit my head, and I don't feel like I'm gonna hit it even if it were lower. On my other tractor, it is lower, and I don't hit my head on it. But on my other tractor too, it sits a little bit more to the front. And that can be an issue, and that was a concern I had with this tractor when I first hooked it up. So I don't know if on other tractors that ever becomes an issue that's insurmountable, but there's not much you can do with the seat. You've got to be a certain distance from the controls, even if you modified the mount. So I don't know that it would work, but again, I don't know if anybody else has that problem. It seemed like I was going to, but I don't now. I don't have that issue. But that's the video. I'm going to take it out and run it through some tests. Eventually what I'm going to do, I've got some work to do with it, I'm going to show you what I do. But I don't just dig holes with this. One of the things I do with this is clear brush and trees, and one of the things I need to do there is to actually dig the tree roots and dig stumps out. I don't leave the stumps. I dig them out for these small trees. Well, I use this hoe to dig those out. So I'm putting incredible stress. I'm maxing it out all the time. And when I use it almost, and I'm not just digging dirt. Digging dirt on this thing is super easy. I have super hard clay around here, and you can always dig dirt with it without any issue at all. Getting under roots, I break roots as big as my arm routinely with it, and so I really put some stress on it, and I have no issues with it whatsoever. Now, one of the reasons why I got a bigger tractor is because everybody says, well, tractor 3-point hitches aren't really made for that kind of stress, and part of the issue is, and I'll show you where it is, you get the two stabilizers down and you've got 3 points of stress. You've got the stabilizers are taking some of the stress. Probably most of the stress is on that top link, and so how beefy your plate is that you're going into, or whether it's molded into your frame. Mine are bolted on, but some pretty serious bolts with some pretty thick steel. I don't have any issue with it, and I had it on that smaller tractor, and I never had an issue with it. Now, one thing I do say is that if I'm digging roots, if I'm digging dirt, I really don't, and this is, don't take my, safety suggestions here. I'm just going to tell you what I do. You do what you want. But what I do is I wear the seat belt. The reason why I wear the seat belt especially when I'm digging up roots and digging up stumps, is because if that ever broke while I was under stress, it's going to yank and pull this way, and it's going to launch me out of that seat. And that's what everybody's concern is. At least that's what I read. That's why I wear the seat belt, because at least I won't launch. I'm not going to feel good after that happens, but I'm not going to launch. So that's why I wear the seat belt when I'm digging up roots. Dirt, it's just so easy. I don't really have an issue digging dirt. It's just, I don't imagine that I'm putting that much stress on it. So I'm not as meticulous or concerned about wearing that seat belt. I'll put another video out there once I get to digging with it, so you can see what it's like digging with it. But like I said, this is a L3301 tractor. I think it is the right size for this. It might even be, I think I could put their bigger backhoe on this tractor. It's that much different. They have a bigger one than this I could have gotten had I had this tractor when I first bought it, and I think I probably could have gotten it. But if you have any questions or comments, please leave them. I'm glad to answer any questions. If you have anything you want to see with the backhoe, I'm going to have another video out there about taking it off. It's just a reverse process, pretty simple. This is putting it on is more difficult. I would say that it takes me about 10 minutes to take it off and about 15 minutes to put it on when I'm not trying to make a video or to show someone how I'm doing it. So not too bad at all. I don't think it takes more than 5 minutes more than to put a regular implement on, really, is what I think about it when I think about how tough it is to do, or how long it takes, or what's involved with it. So for me, taking this on and off just to put another implement on, to me, is not an issue anymore. I will do it every day. It won't bother me at all. So again, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them. Please click like if you like this video, and I'm hoping to build up a channel. And I know that, like I said, this is just something that to me was something that I hadn't seen very much out on YouTube and thought might be useful. Thanks for watching.